Drathhaar is a product of many years of work of German breeders. This is hinted at by the very name of the breed, which in translation from German means Wirehaired. The history of the breed began in the middle of the 19th century. Dog breeders and breeders in Germany came up with the idea to develop a new breed of cop which would combine the best working qualities of its predecessors. Interesting fact, the requirements for the future model were quite significant. It had to be hardy, with excellent sense and hearing. It was good to hunt both field and swamp game. In the course of a large number of experimental mating, breeders finally managed to get a generation of hunting dogs that meets all the above requirements and has a tough and coarse coat. The following breeds of hunting dogs were used as the initial genetic material: Poodle Pointers, Cortals Griffons, Stahelhers. Experience shows that the crossing of representatives of these particular breeds made the Drathhaars ideal hunters, capable of working even in bad weather. The Drathhaars received public recognition rather quickly, in the 70s of the 19th century, and already in 1902, the first specialized club was founded in Germany. After another couple of decades, this breed was included in the register of the International Cynological Federation. Surprisingly, in such a short time, the breed managed to gain popularity in most countries of Western Europe, including the very conservative Great Britain. As for the New World, the Drathhaars were not immediately recognized there, since the Americans, who were accustomed to using exclusively highly specialized dogs in hunting, had long treated the new breed with distrust. Drathhaar, description of the breed. The Drathhaar has a very harmonious and expressive appearance. However, this breed is not valuable in appearance, therefore, to obtain an expert assessment, each individual must go to field trials. By breed standards, the Drathhaar is a fairly tall and strong dog of a somewhat square format, weighing 23 to 32 kilograms. Height at withers. Males, up to 68 centimeters, females, up to 64 centimeters. The dog's head is quite large, somewhat square. A mustache, beard and pronounced eyebrow arches provide a characteristic look to the head. The dog's eyes are usually dark with a specific, demanding and attentive gaze. The whole body of the dog, starting from the neck, is quite wide and muscular. The chest is voluminous, oval in shape. The tail is set horizontally. All four paws of the Drathhaar are quite strong, well-filled and muscular. The animal's movements are sweeping and smooth, and the dog usually runs with its head held high. The coat on different parts of the dog's body has different lengths, 2 to 4 centimeters. There must be a beard on the face, groin and belly overgrown with wool. The structure of the coat is dense, undercoat, and tough, guard hairs. According to the VDT rules, the assessment of the appearance of each individual of the Drathhaar breed is carried out according to only two parameters: coat and shape. The maximum score is 12 points for each parameter. For breeding, dogs with scores of 10/10 are recommended, with the minimum score for such a tolerance being 6/6. An important fact, even with the highest marks, a Drathhaar can be disqualified if he does not show any hunting abilities and is very scared of a shot from a gun. Defects in the appearance of the Drathhaar, which usually prevent exhibition samples from